I never thought I'd feel this way in my mid-20s, like I'm trapped in a cage made of bills, rent notices, and rising prices. When I was a kid, I imagined I'd be out in the world, doing what I love, maybe traveling a little, having some freedom. But here I am, barely keeping my head above water, watching my paycheck disappear faster than I can say budget. It's the kind of pressure that builds quietly at first, almost imperceptibly, but then one day, it's everywhere, like a thick fog that you can't shake off. Every month feels like a balancing act on a tightrope that's getting thinner and thinner. The rent alone gobbles up more than half of what I make. And it's not just rent. Groceries, utilities, transportation, health insurance, all of it creeps up a little more each month. Yet, my income stays stubbornly the same. Or worse, sometimes I get fewer hours, or a raise is nowhere in sight because the economy is tight. Some days, I feel like I'm running in place. Like I'm sprinting toward a finish line that keeps moving further away. The system is designed so that expenses grow faster than income, and I'm caught in the middle of it. I try to be smart, but it feels like every choice I make is the lesser of two evils. Should I buy fresh vegetables or stock up on cheaper canned goods? Should I pay for the bus or risk the cost of a lift when I'm running late? Do I try to save for a future that feels so far away or cover the emergency that just popped up? There's this constant hum of anxiety beneath the surface, a kind of stress that doesn't stop when I clock out. It sneaks into my sleep, into my quiet moments, and sometimes it feels overwhelming. I wake up thinking about bills and fall asleep doing the same. It's exhausting. I'm not alone in this, of course. A lot of people I know are in the same boat, juggling multiple jobs or side gigs, trying to make ends meet. But hearing others talk about their struggles doesn't make mine any easier. In fact, it can sometimes deepen the feeling of helplessness, like we're all stuck in this giant machine that doesn't care about the individual. I hate that feeling, the feeling of invisibility and insignificance. There are moments when I'm just so tired of pretending everything is okay. When I scroll through social media and see friends posting about weekend getaways, new gadgets, or just eating out without a second thought, it hits me hard. It's like I'm watching a world I want to be part of but can't afford to touch. I remind myself that social media is curated, but it still stings. It's a reminder of the dreams I've had to postpone. The dreams I quietly mourn. I used to want to go back to school, maybe get a master's degree. I imagined a career in something creative, writing, art, something meaningful that felt like it fed my soul. But those dreams feel so distant now. Tuition costs, student loans, living expenses, they pile up in my mind like an insurmountable mountain. I tell myself I'll save for it someday, but someday always seems like a luxury I can't afford. I also dreamed of moving out of this small apartment, maybe into a place where I could have a little garden, a quiet corner to breathe. But even just thinking about a bigger rent or a mortgage makes my chest tighten. I want stability, but it feels like stability is a mirage in this economy. To cope, I've had to develop a kind of emotional armor. I remind myself to celebrate small victories, making it through the month without missing a payment, finding a sale on something I need, or even just cooking a meal that feels like a treat. I lean on the few close friends who understand and don't judge. Sometimes I just let myself feel the frustration and sadness because bottling it up only makes it worse. At night, I write in a journal. It's where I'm honest with myself, about the fear, the anger, the exhaustion. Writing helps me clear the noise in my head and hold on to the faintest glimmer of hope. Hope that maybe one day, the numbers will line up differently. That I'll find a job that pays enough to cover more than just the bare essentials. That I won't have to choose between a doctor's visit and rent. Despite everything, I try to hold on to my dreams. They're fragile, like flickering candles in the wind, but they're still there. I imagine a future where I'm not defined by scarcity but by possibility. Where I wake up without that gnawing anxiety about money. Where I can plan vacations, maybe buy a small home, and invest in myself without fear. I don't have all the answers. Some days I'm overwhelmed by the system that seems designed to keep people like me on the edge, always scrambling. But I'm still here, still trying, still hoping. And maybe that's enough for now. If I could say one thing to someone who feels the same way, it would be this: you're not invisible. Your struggle is real and valid. And even when the system feels like it's winning, your dreams are worth fighting for. That's the story I carry with me every day, the story of being caught in the tide but still swimming, still holding on to hope. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments, I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. Some days, it feels like I'm just running in place. No matter how fast or hard I push, I'm stuck in this endless loop where the cost of living spirals out of control, and my paycheck barely inches forward. I'm 27, living in a small, cramped apartment in the city, juggling a part-time job and freelance gigs that never quite add up to enough. The weight of financial pressure isn't just a number, it's a constant, nagging presence in my chest, like a silent alarm that never stops ringing. I grew up believing in the usual promises: work hard, be responsible, and you'll get ahead. But the reality? It's nothing like that. Every month, the rent creeps up a little more, groceries cost more at the checkout, and bills keep piling higher. It's exhausting. I check my bank account daily, and each glance is a mini panic attack. The balance is always lower than I'd hoped, and I scramble to remind myself not to spiral. I've gotten really good at stretching every dollar, but there's a limit to how much you can stretch when the fabric is tearing. I remember the first time I really felt crushed by money. It was the winter after college, the first time I had to pay for my own utilities and phone plan. I thought, okay, I've got this, but then the heating bill came, and I stared at it like it was a mistake. I turned the thermostat down so low my fingers would go numb just walking around the apartment, and I ate instant noodles for almost every meal because fresh food was just a luxury I couldn't afford. I hated feeling that powerless. I hated that money dictated whether I could just be comfortable or not. It's not just the bills. It's the tiny decisions that chip away at your sense of freedom. When a friend invites me out, I have to think twice. Can I really afford that $15 coffee? What about the bus fare? Sometimes I say no so often, I feel like I'm isolating myself. There's this creeping loneliness, too, like I'm watching everyone else live their lives, take vacations, buy things they want, and I'm stuck in survival mode. It makes me question myself: am I just not smart enough, not working hard enough, or is this really just how things are now? There's this frustration that builds up when you see prices rise but your income stays the same, or worse, gets cut. I've had jobs where hours were slashed or contracts ended abruptly. The unpredictability feels like the floor can fall out from under me at any moment. I'm constantly worried about the next emergency, an unexpected medical bill, a broken phone, a sudden expense that could push me into overdraft. The stress doesn't switch off, and it affects everything: my sleep, my mood, my relationships. Sometimes I feel trapped in a system that's designed to keep people like me in place. I pay taxes, I follow the rules, I do what I'm supposed to, but it never feels like enough. The gap between my expenses and income grows wider every year, and it's exhausting to pretend I can bridge it. I've had to postpone so many dreams. I was supposed to travel last year, but that got shelved. I dream of going back to school, maybe pursuing a degree or certification to advance my career, but even that feels out of reach. Saving for a down payment on a home? Forget it. Every month is about just making it through, not building for the future. I try to find small pockets of hope. I keep a journal where I write about my dreams, even if they seem impossible right now. I remind myself that this pressure doesn't define me, that I'm more than my bank balance. I try to celebrate small wins: getting through a tough week, finding a cheaper grocery option, getting positive feedback from a freelance client. I also talk openly with close friends about what I'm going through. Sometimes just saying the words out loud helps take some of the weight off. Emotionally, it's a roller coaster. Some days, I'm determined and optimistic, convinced that if I keep pushing, things will get better. Other days, I feel defeated, like the world is moving ahead and I'm stuck in quicksand. The exhaustion is real, not just physical but mental and emotional. I try to practice gratitude where I can, but it's hard when every decision feels like a sacrifice. What keeps me going is the hope that this isn't permanent. I imagine a future where I'm not constantly checking my bank app in dread, where I can say yes to plans without hesitation, where I can invest in myself and my happiness without second-guessing every dollar. I don't want pity or a handout, I want a fair shot, a system that doesn't feel rigged against people like me. I want to believe that hard work still matters, that opportunity still exists, and that I can carve out a life where financial pressure isn't the main character. For now, I take it day by day, inch by inch. I'm learning to live with the tension, to find peace in the chaos, and to hold on to my dreams even when the world seems determined to keep them out of reach. It's not easy, and some days it hurts deeply, but I'm still here, still fighting, still hoping, still trying to find my way forward. Because even in this system that feels like it's closing in, I have to believe there's a crack in the walls somewhere, a way out, a way through, and a way to finally breathe without the weight of money pressing down on my chest. I never thought I'd end up feeling like this, stuck, worn down, barely holding on. I'm 26 now, and for as long as I can remember, money has been this looming, constant pressure in the background of my life, sometimes so loud it drowns out everything else. It's like trying to breathe underwater, and the harder I try, the more I feel like I'm sinking. I grew up in a household where money was always tight but somehow manageable. My parents worked long hours, juggling multiple jobs, and there was always this unspoken rule: don't spend what you don't have. That lesson stuck with me, but now, as a young adult trying to make my own way, I realize just how impossible it is to actually live by that rule in today's world. My job pays okay, enough to cover rent, utilities, and the essentials, but that's about it. And even those essentials feel like moving targets. Rent goes up every year, sometimes more. Groceries cost more than they did 6 months ago. My utility bills spike during winter and summer, and I've had to cut back on everything just to keep the lights on. It's like I'm running a race where the finish line keeps moving farther away. Every morning, I wake up with this knot in my stomach, wondering if this paycheck will stretch to cover the month. I plan and replan my budget, cutting out coffee, skipping meals, delaying doctor's visits. I haven't bought a new pair of shoes in over 2 years, and my phone is on its last leg, but a new one is a luxury I can't afford. I don't go out much anymore. The idea of spending $20 on a night out feels irresponsible when I'm still figuring out how to pay the electric bill. I often feel ashamed talking about money with friends. They ask, why don't you just ask your parents for help, or can't you get a better job? But it's not that simple. My parents don't have extra to give, and better jobs often mean longer hours with no guarantee of more pay. Sometimes, I think about going back to school to get a degree that could help me earn more, but tuition is astronomical, and the idea of more debt terrifies me. It's like I'm caught in a system designed to keep people like me just barely afloat. The cost of living climbs faster than my income, and no matter how hard I work, I'm not getting ahead. I have dreams, small ones, really. I want to travel, learn to cook properly, maybe even start saving for a home one day. But those dreams feel so distant, almost like they belong to someone else. I try to find moments of peace in this chaos. I read books from the library instead of buying them, I walk in the park instead of going to the gym, and sometimes I just sit quietly and breathe. I've learned to appreciate the small victories, like making it through the month without missing a bill, or catching up on a few hours of sleep. Those moments are my fuel. Emotionally, it's exhausting. The weight of financial stress seeps into every part of my life: relationships, self-esteem, mental health. I catch myself feeling guilty for things I can't afford to do or buy, and sometimes I get angry, not at anyone in particular but at the whole system. It's frustrating to see others my age buying cars, starting families, and moving into homes while I'm just trying to keep my head above water. Yet, I still hold on to hope. Not the naive kind, but a quiet, stubborn hope. Hope that maybe, with a little luck and persistence, I can find a way out of this cycle. That one day, I'll look back and see this period not as a lifetime sentence, but as a challenge I survived. I remind myself that even if the future is uncertain, I'm still here, still fighting. Sometimes, when I allow myself to dream, I imagine a life where money isn't a source of anxiety, where I can make choices because I want to, not because I have to. Where I can invest in myself without fear, travel without guilt, and rest without worry. Those dreams keep me going, even on the days when everything feels impossible. For now, I'll keep navigating this tightrope, one paycheck at a time, holding on to whatever small joys I can find, and hoping for a day when financial pressure doesn't define my life. Because despite everything, I believe in the possibility of more freedom, more security, more peace. And maybe that's enough to keep me moving forward. Some days, it feels like I'm running on a treadmill that's just speeding up, faster than I can keep pace, no matter how hard I try. That's the best way I can describe this financial pressure that's wrapped around my life like a heavy, unshakable fog. I'm 27, technically an adult, and yet I'm caught in this endless cycle where my expenses balloon faster than my paycheck grows, leaving me gasping for air but never quite catching up. It started right after college. I graduated with a decent degree, hopeful and maybe a bit naive, thinking that a stable job would mean stability in life. But the economy had other plans. Inflation crept up quietly at first, then like a tidal wave, rent rose, groceries cost more, the utility bills kept climbing, and every little thing added up like a mountain I could never summit. Meanwhile, my salary bumped up just barely, like a slow drip against a fire hose. Every day feels like a negotiation with myself. Which bills can I afford to pay in full? Should I cut back on food, or skip the doctor's appointment? Is it better to pay for the subway or risk walking to save money but lose valuable time and energy? I spend more time budgeting and recalculating than actually living. The small pleasures that once felt like rewards, like grabbing a coffee with friends, or buying a new book, have become luxuries I can rarely afford. I remember last year, when my friend invited me out for dinner to celebrate her promotion. I wanted to go, I really did. But I kept calculating the cost in my head, wondering if I could afford it without the rent slipping into late fees. So I declined, again. I felt that familiar sting of isolation, knowing I was missing out because of money, and feeling guilty for it. What's worse is the creeping sense of being trapped. It's like the system is built to keep me in place, a cycle where the cost of living escalates relentlessly but income barely moves. I'm working harder than I ever have, sometimes 2 jobs just to cover rent and utilities, but it feels like I'm barely treading water. I hear stories of people my age buying homes, traveling, investing, building futures. Meanwhile, I'm juggling debt from student loans, credit cards, and unexpected expenses like a broken-down car or a medical bill. Emotionally, it's exhausting. The pressure gnaws at me daily, creating this low hum of anxiety that never really goes away. I lie awake some nights, heart racing, staring at the ceiling, worrying about what happens if I lose my job or get sick. I've had to make impossible choices. Do I pay for a medicine I need, or do I skip a meal so there's enough left for rent? The feeling of helplessness is suffocating. But I also try to cope. I've gotten good at stretching $1, buying groceries on sale, cooking meals from scratch, cutting cable, and finding free entertainment. I've learned to ask for help sometimes, even though it's humbling. And I hold on to small acts of kindness or moments of joy that remind me there's more to life than money, even if those moments are fleeting. Despite all this, I still hold on to hope. I dream of a day when money isn't the constant shadow over my decisions, when I can save for something more than just emergencies, when I can invest in myself, maybe take a course, travel somewhere new, or finally buy a home. Those dreams feel distant, but they keep me going. I'm honest with myself that some dreams have been postponed indefinitely. Having a family? Not anytime soon. Buying a car? That feels like a luxury I have to push way down the road. Even things like mental health support feel out of reach sometimes. But I remind myself that postponing doesn't mean giving up. It means adapting, surviving, and fighting for a better future even when the present feels like a trap. Living in this economic environment has changed how I see the world. I'm more cautious, more pragmatic, but also more aware of how unfair it can be. It's hard not to feel invisible or forgotten by a system that seems to reward wealth and punish struggle. But I keep moving forward because what other choice do I have? This isn't just a story about money. It's a story about resilience, about holding on when everything tries to pull you under. About feeling small in a system too big to control, but still trying to carve out space to breathe, to hope, to live. Someday, maybe the treadmill will slow down. Until then, I run as fast as I can. I never thought I'd feel this way, like I'm constantly running on a treadmill that's speeding up. No matter how fast I push, I'm never getting anywhere. It's this gnawing pressure, the kind that settles in your chest and lingers in your thoughts like a dark cloud you can't shake off. I'm in my mid-20s, working full-time, but somehow, it feels like I'm drowning in bills, rent, and endless expenses that keep climbing while my paycheck barely budges. Some days, I sit at my small kitchen table, staring at the stack of unopened bills and scrolling through my bank app over and over, hoping something has magically changed overnight. It hasn't. The balance looks the same, maybe even less than the week before. I try not to panic, but the anxiety creeps in anyway. Groceries, utilities, gas, insurance, every little thing chips away at my sanity. And then there's rent, that monstrous amount that always seems to rise just a little more each year. It's like the landlord knows exactly how much pain they can squeeze out of people like me who just want a place to call home without feeling like we're constantly being squeezed dry. I work a steady job in retail management, a position I thought would bring me some stability. Instead, it feels like I'm stuck in a loop, working longer hours, sometimes picking up extra shifts just to cover unexpected expenses. And even then, it barely makes a dent. The cost of living has ballooned around me, gas prices shoot up, groceries cost more, even basic stuff like toilet paper seems to have inflated overnight. But my wages? They stay flat, barely keeping pace with inflation, if at all. Because of this, I've had to make choices every day that chip away at my peace of mind. Do I skip a meal to save money? Should I keep the heat low this month even if it means freezing at night? Can I afford to fill my car with gas so I can get to work, or should I risk taking the bus, which means longer hours and less sleep? It's exhausting, physically and mentally. It's not just the money, though. It's what this pressure does to my headspace. I feel like I'm constantly on edge, stressed about the smallest things because they feel like huge obstacles. I worry about what happens if something breaks down, the car, my phone, the plumbing in my apartment. One emergency could shatter what little stability I have. The weight of that worry makes it hard to sleep, hard to relax, and sometimes, even hard to breathe. Social life? That's been put on the back burner for years now. When every dollar counts, going out with friends feels like an impossible luxury. Birthdays, celebrations, even casual dinners out, those are memories I haven't made in a long time. I've watched people around me travel, buy new gadgets, or move into nicer places while I stay put, barely managing the basics. I don't blame them, but it stings, that feeling of being left behind. I've had to postpone so many dreams. I once imagined traveling, seeing new places, experiencing different cultures, breaking free from this cycle of constant survival. I dreamed of going back to school, maybe finishing a degree to open doors for a better career. But those are now distant hopes, overshadowed by the immediate need to make rent and keep food on the table. Even saving for a down payment on a home feels like a fantasy. How do you save when everything you earn is already spoken for? Sometimes, I wonder if I'm doing something wrong. Maybe if I worked harder, budgeted better, or made different choices, I could get ahead. But the truth is, I've tried. I track my expenses meticulously, cut out everything non-essential, and still, it's not enough. The system feels rigged, like the rules keep changing and the finish line moves further away every time I look up. The hardest part is feeling invisible, like the pressure and struggle are mine alone, and nobody else really understands. I don't want to be a burden or complain, so I keep it bottled up. But the isolation is suffocating. Sometimes, I just want someone to acknowledge how hard it is, to say, I see you. This isn't your fault. Despite all this, I'm trying to hold on to hope. Maybe someday things will shift. Maybe the economy will stabilize, wages will rise, and opportunities will open up. I'm learning to find small moments of joy wherever I can, a good book, a walk in the park, a phone call with a friend. These little things remind me there's still life beyond the grind. I'm also learning to be kinder to myself, to accept that I'm doing my best in a tough situation. I'm not lazy or careless. I'm not failing. I'm just a young adult trying to navigate a world that feels increasingly designed to hold me back. And maybe, by sharing this story, I'm reclaiming some control, reminding myself and others that this struggle is real, but it doesn't have to define us. So, I keep moving forward, one day at a time, with the hope that one day I'll look back and see how far I've come, not just in dollars, but in strength, resilience, and courage. Because even when it feels like I'm trapped, I know deep down I'm still dreaming, still fighting, and still believing in a better future. And that makes all the difference. I never thought I'd feel this way at 26, like I'm drowning, even though I'm standing on solid ground. It's this endless, invisible pressure that presses down on me every single day, tightening just a little more with every bill that arrives or every price tag I see at the store. The thing is, I'm not asking for much. I just want to live without constantly counting every cent, without that gnawing fear that one unexpected expense will tip me over the edge. It starts every morning when I check my bank balance before I get out of bed. The numbers blink back at me, smaller than I wish, refusing to grow despite my best efforts. I work a full-time job that should, in theory, cover my basic needs, but it doesn't. Rent keeps climbing, groceries are more expensive, utility bills eat away more of my paycheck than they did last year, and don't even get me started on the cost of health insurance and transportation. Every month, the expenses grow faster than my income, and the gap between what I earn and what I need feels like it's widening into an unbridgeable canyon. I used to dream big. I wanted to travel, maybe go back to school for a master's degree, or even start my own small business. But now those dreams feel like luxury items locked behind a glass wall. Instead, I'm stuck making choices that feel more like sacrifices than decisions. Should I pay the credit card bill in full, or hold back some cash in case my car breaks down again? Should I skip meals to save money, or stretch the groceries as far as they can go, hoping I don't end up too hungry? It's exhausting. What makes it worse is the isolation. No one really talks about this kind of stress openly. I see posts on social media of people going out, traveling, buying new things, and it feels like a secret club I'm not invited to. Sometimes I feel embarrassed admitting I can't keep up, like there's something wrong with me because I'm struggling financially in a world where everyone else seems to be thriving. But the truth is, the system isn't built for people like me. It's designed to keep us running in place, chasing a paycheck that doesn't stretch as far as it used to. There are days when the weight of it all feels unbearable. I lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, trying to silence the endless chatter in my head about bills, debts, and the uncertain future. I've had to postpone seeing doctors for minor health issues because the copays add up, and I can't afford to take time off work. Social invitations get declined more often than accepted because I simply don't have the extra cash. The isolation deepens, and the emotional toll mounts. But I try to cope. I've become a master of budgeting and couponing, hunting for sales like a scavenger. I've learned to cook meals from scratch, making enough for leftovers so I don't have to buy lunch at work every day. I cut out any unnecessary subscriptions, and I rarely buy new clothes or gadgets. It's not glamorous, but it's survival. I keep a small journal where I jot down moments of gratitude, a cup of coffee with a friend, a sunny afternoon walk, the rare but precious feeling of calm. Those little things remind me I'm still human, still capable of joy despite the hardship. Sometimes, when I allow myself to dream, I imagine a future where money isn't the enemy. I picture a small apartment that I own, not rent. I see myself waking up without the dread of financial strain, able to invest in my health and education. I dream of traveling just to see the world, not just to escape. But then reality pulls me back, whispering that these things are far off, maybe even impossible right now. Still, I hold on to hope. Because if I let go, what do I have left? I try to remind myself that I'm not alone, even if it feels that way. I know others are fighting similar battles, trapped in this cycle where expenses grow faster than income, where the system feels rigged. And maybe, someday, there will be a way out. Until then, I keep pushing forward, taking one day at a time, even when it feels like survival is all I can manage. I'm tired. I'm scared. But I'm still here, and that means something. I never thought I'd feel this way, like I'm constantly running in place, just trying to keep from sinking. But here I am, in my late 20s, stuck in what feels like an endless loop of financial pressure, where every day is a battle against numbers that don't add up, bills that keep growing, and a paycheck that somehow stretches thinner each month. It's exhausting. I remember when I first started working full-time after college, I was optimistic. Sure, I had loans to pay off, rent to cover, and all the usual adult expenses, but I believed that with some smart budgeting and hard work, I'd get ahead. I imagined saving enough to travel, maybe move to a nicer apartment, even think about buying a car someday. Dreams felt tangible, just a few steps away. But reality hit hard and fast. Rent hikes that didn't seem to have an end, groceries getting pricier every time I went shopping, and utilities climbing with no warning. My salary raises barely keep pace, if they rise at all. It's like the cost of living is on a rocket to the moon, and my income is stuck in a traffic jam on Earth. Every time I think I've figured out the math, a new expense pops up, car repairs, medical bills, or the surprise emergency costs that feel anything but. The worst part is knowing this isn't just my problem, it's the story of so many people my age. I feel trapped. Not physically, but in a system that's designed in a way that makes it almost impossible to catch a break. It's not just about money. It's the emotional weight that sits on my chest every time I open an envelope and see the balance due or check my bank account and realize how close I am to zero. The pressure leaks into every part of my life. I avoid making calls to set up payment plans because I'm scared of confrontation and the guilt of owing. I push back on seeing friends or going out because I can't afford it, even though what I really want is connection and normalcy. It's lonely. Most mornings, I wake up with a knot of anxiety that I try to shake off before I get out of bed. I replay the week's budget in my head, thinking about what I can skip, what I can delay. Sometimes I try to remind myself that this is temporary, that if I just work harder, things will change. But the truth is, every month feels like 2 steps forward and 3 steps back. I catch myself dreaming less and worrying more. I used to love writing. It was my escape, a way to pour out everything bottled up inside. But lately, even that feels like a luxury I can't afford. My mind is too cluttered with stress and exhaustion to focus on anything creative. I postponed dreams I once thought inevitable, saving for a down payment, going back to school for something I'm passionate about, or even just having the freedom to quit a job that drains me and find something better. Those dreams feel like distant stars, flickering faintly but unreachable. Sometimes, late at night, I scroll through social media and see people my age traveling, buying homes, or starting businesses. I want to be happy for them, but instead, I feel this pang of envy mixed with self-doubt. Am I doing something wrong? Why does it feel like I'm falling behind even though I'm working as hard as I can? The system doesn't reward hustle alone, it demands luck, privilege, and a break that rarely comes. I try to cope in small ways. I've started cooking more at home, cutting out all unnecessary expenses, and even taking on odd jobs when I can. Sometimes I talk to friends who understand, and that helps, knowing I'm not alone in this mess. But some days, the weight is too much, and I have to remind myself that surviving this is still a form of success. It's not glamorous or exciting, but it's real. What keeps me going is the hope that this won't be forever. I want to believe that if I keep pushing, keep finding little ways to improve, someday I'll break free from this cycle. I want to dream again without guilt, to plan a future where money isn't the enemy, but a tool I control. I want to look back on these years and see them as the hard but necessary chapter that made me stronger. For now, I'm learning to be kind to myself, to recognize that surviving financial pressure in this economy is an achievement in itself. And maybe that's the first step toward healing, acknowledging the struggle and holding on to hope, even when it feels like everything else is slipping through my fingers. This is my story. Not because it's unique, but because it's real, and maybe, just maybe, sharing it will help someone else feel less alone in their fight. I never thought I'd end up here, feeling like I'm running a race where the finish line keeps moving farther away, no matter how fast I sprint. I'm 26 now, juggling 2 part-time jobs and trying to make rent on a tiny apartment that barely feels like a home. Every day, I wake up hoping that maybe today will be different, maybe today the numbers will add up in my favor, but they never do. The bills keep piling up, and my paycheck seems to shrink in comparison. It's like living inside a pressure cooker. The cost of living rises relentlessly, while my income feels stuck in slow motion. Rent goes up every 6 months, groceries get pricier with every trip to the store, and don't get me started on utilities and transportation. Even the little things, coffee, toiletries, the occasional night out, feel like luxuries now, and luxuries I can't really afford. But if I cut everything out, what's left? It's exhausting. Some mornings I stare at my phone screen, balancing my bank app and the calendar with due dates for bills. Each notification feels like a punch in the gut. I try to ignore the sinking feeling, but it lingers beneath everything. I remember a time when I dreamed big, thought I'd go to grad school, maybe start a career in something creative, something that felt meaningful. Instead, I'm constantly putting those dreams on hold because there's no safety net, no cushion for what-ifs. It's hard to explain to people who haven't felt this squeeze how crushing it is. It's not just about money, it's about the weight of uncertainty that follows you everywhere. When you can't be sure if you'll have enough to cover rent next month, it's hard to plan anything. Vacations, continuing education, even something as simple as replacing a broken phone screen feels impossible. I keep telling myself, just get through this month, but the months stack up and I'm still here, struggling. There's a strange loneliness in this kind of financial pressure, too. I don't like to talk about it much. Friends seem to be moving forward, buying cars, traveling, settling into careers. I feel like I'm stuck watching from the sidelines. Sometimes I get invited out, but I hesitate because every dollar counts. It feels like I'm living a life half-lived, where I'm constantly sacrificing small joys for basic survival. Coping has become a balancing act between necessity and sanity. I've learned to get creative, meal prepping cheap, filling foods, hunting for discounts, sharing rides, working overtime whenever possible. But it's a double-edged sword, I burn out fast. Sleep is often sacrificed. Social interactions happen over free coffee or brief phone calls. I've developed this strange kind of resilience, but it's fragile. Some nights, the anxiety wakes me up, heart pounding over how I'll pay next month's bills or what I'll do if my car breaks down. Despite everything, I hold on to hope, but it's hard not to feel bitter sometimes. The system feels rigged. Expenses rise, wages don't keep pace, and the promises of work hard and you'll get ahead seem more like a cruel joke. I see people around me caught in the same loop, and I wonder how anyone breaks free. It's exhausting to think that my worth and stability depend on a game where the rules keep changing without notice. I often find myself reflecting on the dreams I've had to postpone. I wanted to go back to school, get a degree that could open doors, maybe start a family one day. I imagined having the freedom to travel, to explore, to invest in myself. Now, those dreams feel distant, almost unattainable. But sometimes, late at night, when the noise fades and it's just me and my thoughts, I let myself imagine what it would be like to live without this constant financial weight. To wake up and not feel panic. To say yes to things without second-guessing the cost. I'm not sure when or how things will change. Maybe it's years away, or maybe it's a small breakthrough that will tip the balance. For now, I keep going, one day at a time, one paycheck to the next. I try to celebrate the small victories, like paying a bill on time, finding a good deal, or even just making it through a tough week without breaking down. I remind myself that I'm not alone in this struggle, even if it often feels that way. At the end of the day, this is my reality, a young adult caught in a relentless economic squeeze, trying to survive and still believe in a better future. It's messy, painful, and exhausting, but it's also a testament to the quiet strength it takes just to keep moving forward. Hey, friends! If you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. Sometimes I sit on the edge of my bed, staring at the small pile of bills that never seems to get any smaller. It's like this quiet, constant weight pressing down on my chest, nothing explosive, just a steady squeeze that never lets up. I'm 27 now, and for as long as I can remember, money has felt like a cage I can't unlock, no matter how hard I claw at it. I never thought I'd be this person, the one who counts every cent, who skips meals sometimes just to keep the lights on, who dreams in dollar signs and feels trapped in a never-ending loop of expenses outpacing income. I grew up thinking that if I worked hard, everything would work out. That's what they told us, right? Go to school, get a decent job, and you'll be fine. But life's been this slow unraveling of that promise. My job pays just enough to cover rent and the basics, but never enough to breathe freely. Every month, the cost of groceries creeps up. Rent has shot through the roof in my city, and utilities don't care if you're already stretching thin. I'm not just living paycheck to paycheck, I'm barely managing paycheck to bill. I want to believe things will get better, but the numbers don't lie. It's humiliating sometimes, this feeling of being caught in a system that's designed to keep me just below the line. I work full-time, often overtime, but it feels like I'm running on a treadmill that's speeding up every week. Inflation eats away at my modest raises, and the credit card debt from when I had to cover an unexpected car repair or doctor's visit keeps piling up interest. I've stopped opening those statements because the anxiety they cause is crushing. I try to remind myself, I'm not alone. Lots of people are struggling. But that doesn't make it any easier to face the silence when my phone buzzes with a payment reminder or my stomach tightens at the thought of another rent increase. Social media makes it worse. I scroll past photos of friends taking vacations, buying new cars, moving into fancy apartments, and sometimes I want to scream because I'm proud of them, but I also feel this sharp pang of jealousy mixed with sadness. Why can't that be me? I want to celebrate their success without feeling like I'm falling further behind. It's exhausting. Everyday decisions feel like high-stakes gambles. Do I pay for the doctor's appointment or put that money toward groceries? Should I risk using the bus or pay for a rideshare because I'm running late for work? I've gotten so good at cutting corners, but the mental toll is wearing me down. Simple things like a cup of coffee or dinner with friends have become luxuries I can't afford. I say no more than yes, and the loneliness settles in deeper every time. Sometimes, I catch myself daydreaming about what life could be. I used to think I'd buy a small house, maybe start a family someday. I imagined a job where I wasn't constantly worried about money, where I could save for the future instead of just surviving. But now those dreams feel distant, like stars I can see but can never reach. I'm learning to postpone my hopes indefinitely because the present demands so much of me. Even my self-worth gets tangled up in it. I wonder if I'm failing because I can't make it despite working so hard. At night, when the world is quiet and I'm alone with my thoughts, the pressure swells. Sometimes I lie awake, wondering if this is all there is. Will I ever break free from this pattern, or is this the story I'm stuck with? The exhaustion sometimes makes me numb, like I'm going through the motions of life without really living it. I don't want to feel like this, but vulnerability is the only thing real left. It's hard to admit that I'm scared and overwhelmed, that I feel invisible in a system that sees me only as a number. But I keep trying. I read about personal finance, budgeting apps, side hustles. I apply to better jobs, even though rejection letters stack up. I remind myself that small wins count. Like the time I finally paid off a small debt or the day I managed to cook a full meal on a shoestring budget. Those moments feel like tiny victories, proof that I'm still fighting. I hold on to the hope that someday, maybe, the world will shift enough for people like me to catch a break. That wages will rise in step with costs, that housing will be affordable, that healthcare won't mean bankruptcy. I want to believe that if I keep going, if I keep believing, the cage will open. Until then, I live in this paradox, grateful for what I have but aching for what feels just out of reach. So, I keep counting, keep calculating, keep hoping. Because even when the system feels designed to trap me, I know I have to keep pushing, keep dreaming, and keep believing that one day, I'll breathe free again. It's strange how money shapes every corner of your life when you barely have enough of it. I never thought I'd be so deeply tied down by numbers, by endless calculations of what I can and cannot afford, but here I am, 26, stuck in this loop where the cost of living climbs higher every day, and my paycheck just stretches thinner and thinner. When I was a kid, my parents always said, "Work hard, and you'll be fine." I believed them, thought I'd just get a decent job, pay my bills, maybe save a bit, and eventually have some freedom to enjoy life. But reality hit hard. I graduated with a degree that was supposed to open doors, yet the door I walked through led to a job that pays just enough to keep me barely afloat. Rent takes a massive chunk, utilities and groceries add up quickly, and there's always that nagging worry about the unexpected, the broken washing machine, a medical bill, or a car repair. Those emergencies don't wait, and when they come, they pull you under. Every morning I wake up, I think about money. Not in some abstract way, but very concretely. Do I have enough for the bus this week? Can I skip buying lunch today and eat from home? Maybe I can make coffee instead of buying it out. Sometimes I feel ridiculous, measuring every little expense like a miser, but it's survival. I've learned to cut corners where I can, clothes are thrifted, nights out are rare, and streaming subscriptions are luxuries I keep threatening to cancel. I don't have room for extras anymore. It's exhausting. The constant vigilance, the anxiety over the bank balance. And it doesn't just hurt my wallet, it drains me emotionally. I feel so trapped. Like I'm running on a treadmill that's speeding up, but my legs can't keep pace. The bills keep coming, rent creeps up, the price of groceries climbs, but my wage hasn't budged in years. Sometimes I lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, overwhelmed by this relentless pressure. It's a quiet kind of despair that seeps in slowly, a heaviness you carry even when you try to put on a brave face. I used to have dreams. I wanted to travel, to move to a city where I didn't feel stuck. I imagined weekends filled with exploring new places, meeting new people, learning new things. I wanted to go back to school someday, maybe get a master's degree. But those dreams have been put on hold indefinitely. Every extra dollar I make goes to just getting by. Saving feels impossible when there's always something urgent. So, I tell myself, maybe next year. Maybe someday. But that someday seems to drift further away with each passing month. The system feels rigged in a way I never fully understood until now. It's like being caught in a rising tide of costs with no boat to keep you afloat. I see people on social media posting about expensive dinners, weekend getaways, new gadgets, and I don't resent them, but I envy that freedom. I envy that choice. Because right now, choice feels like a luxury I can't afford. I have to choose between paying rent or seeing a doctor when I'm sick. Choosing to buy groceries or replace my worn-out shoes. These are not choices, they're compromises born from necessity. Sometimes I try to cope by distracting myself, watching movies, chatting with friends, or losing myself in a book. But the pressure creeps back in, especially when the novelty wears off and I'm left facing reality again. On bad days, the stress gets so intense I feel like I'm suffocating, like I'm not just struggling financially but emotionally beaten down. It's a lonely kind of fight, and it's hard to explain to people who haven't been there. They might say, just budget better, or try harder, but it's never that simple. I'm already doing everything I can. Still, I hold on to hope. Hope that things might change, that maybe I'll get a raise, or find a better job, or that rent prices won't keep rising. Hope that I can one day stop living paycheck to paycheck and start building a life where money doesn't rule every decision. I remind myself that this isn't forever. That even if today feels heavy, the future can still be different. I try to find small moments of joy where I can, like catching a sunset on my walk home, laughing with a friend over a cheap coffee, or treating myself to a slice of cake once in a while. Those moments remind me there's still light beyond the struggle, even if it's dimmed right now. Being young and financially pressured is like living in a constant fog of uncertainty and restraint. It's hard to explain the fatigue that comes from never feeling secure, the sting of postponed dreams, and the persistent, gnawing fear of falling further behind. But I'm here, still trying, still hoping. Because if I give up on hope, then what's left? This is my reality, complex, exhausting, and painfully real. But it's mine to live, and somehow, I'll keep going. I never thought I'd feel this way at 26, like I'm stuck in a loop I can't break out of. Every month feels like walking on a tightrope, except the rope is fraying and the ground below keeps getting further away. The bills pile up, the rent creeps higher, groceries cost more than they used to, and my paycheck? It feels like it's barely keeping up, if at all. I'm trapped in this system where expenses keep sprinting ahead, while my income is stuck in slow motion. Some days I wake up with this heavy, sinking feeling in my chest. It's not panic exactly, but a constant, nagging pressure that never goes away. Like a low-level hum of stress that's always there, just under the surface. When I look at my bank account, I feel this sharp sting of disappointment. How did it get this low so fast? How am I supposed to stretch this amount of money to cover everything? I'm not living lavishly, not at all. I don't buy coffee from fancy cafes or go out every weekend. I cook at home, I walk instead of taking the bus, I cut back on almost everything that isn't absolutely necessary. Still, it feels like I'm barely holding on. When I was a kid, I had so many dreams. I wanted to travel, to see the world beyond my small town. I dreamed about going back to school someday, getting a degree that could open new doors. I wanted to buy a little place of my own, decorate it with plants and books, maybe even get a dog. But those dreams feel distant now, like they belonged to someone else, to a version of me that had the luxury of hope without the weight of reality. Every day, the economic environment feels like this invisible wall pressing down on me. I watch the news, and it's always about inflation, rising costs, stagnant wages, job markets that favor the already privileged. I try to stay hopeful, but it's hard when you see stories of people your age buying homes or starting businesses, while you're rationing your groceries and debating whether you can afford to fix the dent in your car. There's a loneliness to it, a quiet shame that makes you want to hide. You start comparing yourself to others, wondering if you're doing something wrong, if you're just not trying hard enough. But deep down, I know it's not that simple. I work 2 jobs, both are barely enough to keep my head above water. My main job is a retail position, hours fluctuating unpredictably, no guarantee of overtime, and my second is freelance writing gigs that come and go like waves. I'm exhausted all the time, and there's this constant tension between needing to rest and needing to work more just to stay afloat. It feels like no matter how much I hustle, the finish line keeps moving further away. Sometimes I find little ways to cope, listening to music that matches my mood, writing in a journal, talking to a close friend who understands. Those moments feel like tiny islands of peace in a sea of uncertainty. But even those moments come with a shadow because I know the bills won't wait for me to feel better. I've had to postpone my medical checkups, delay buying new shoes despite the holes in my old ones, and say no to invitations because I just can't afford it. Emotions run high in these moments: frustration, sadness, fear. I worry about what the future looks like. What if this is just how it is forever? What if I never get out of this cycle? There's a dull ache in my heart when I think about giving up on some of those dreams I held so tightly. Like a book I stopped reading halfway through, knowing the ending might never come. But amidst all the weight, there's a flicker of determination. I remind myself that this pressure isn't who I am, even if it feels like it sometimes. I remind myself that my worth isn't tied to my bank balance or my job title. I still dream about small victories, a steady job with benefits, the day I can save enough for a real vacation, maybe even the courage to go back to school when the time is right. I try to celebrate the little wins too, even if they're small. Paying off a credit card balance feels like a mountain climbed, Cooking a healthy meal on a tight budget feels like a triumph. Sending out a batch of job applications, even if the replies are few, feels like I'm still moving forward. And on the hardest days, I let myself feel the fear and frustration because bottling it up only makes it worse. I don't know exactly how or when this will change. The system feels rigged in so many ways, and sometimes I want to scream or cry or just disappear. But I keep going. Because giving up means losing the hope that maybe someday, this pressure will ease. Maybe someday, I'll wake up and feel free instead of trapped. And maybe, just maybe, the dreams I put on hold will find their way back to me. Until then, I carry this story with me, a quiet reminder that I'm still here, still fighting, still hoping. It hits me hardest in the grocery store. I'll be standing there with a basket, not even a cart, because carts make you think you have room for things you don't need, and I'll be calculating in my head like it's some kind of survival math. Bread, milk, eggs. Maybe a bag of spinach because I've convinced myself it's good to look like I'm trying. Every item is a decision. Not in the what do I feel like eating way, but in the what can I afford without dipping into rent money way. I'm 27. I graduated 5 years ago with a degree in communications. Back then, I thought I was going to do something that mattered, tell stories, connect people, maybe work for a nonprofit that does good in the world. I imagined an apartment in the city with tall windows, morning coffee by the sun, dinner with friends on weekends. Instead, I'm in a one-bedroom walk-up where the heat barely works, in a neighborhood that's been up and coming for the last decade. I work 2 part-time jobs, one at a digital marketing firm that calls me a freelancer to avoid paying benefits, and the other at a coffee shop 3 blocks from my apartment, where I smile until my cheeks hurt and hope the tips cover at least some of my groceries. Rent goes up every year. My income doesn't. I tried negotiating once. My landlord, Joe, laughed like I told a joke. "You're lucky," he said, "people are paying double across the river." And he's right. There's always someone more desperate, more willing. The city doesn't wait for anyone. Most of my money is gone before I get it. Student loans, rent, utilities, groceries, transit. My phone screen cracked 3 months ago, but I've learned to read around the shatter lines. I haven't been to the dentist in 2 years. I ignore the emails about health insurance, I know I can't afford the premiums. Every now and then I let myself dream about going back to school, maybe switching careers. But the thought of more debt feels like standing at the edge of a pit. I'm always tired. Not just physically, it's deeper than that. It's like my body knows I'm not resting, even when I sleep. There's a pressure that sits behind my eyes, a hum of stress that never turns off. I can't remember the last time I made a decision without immediately asking, can I afford that? Even joy feels like a risk sometimes. Some days I fantasize about quitting everything, moving to a cabin somewhere, growing my own food. It's a ridiculous fantasy. I don't know how to garden. I barely know how to cook without a microwave. But in that fantasy, I feel something I don't feel here, free. My friends are in the same boat, mostly. We send each other memes about late-stage capitalism, joke about being broke millennials, share tips on how to make rice taste like more than just rice. But there's a heaviness under the laughter. Most of us aren't building anything. We're just staying afloat. I had dreams once. I wanted to write a book. I wanted to travel. I wanted to fall in love without thinking about who makes more money. But when survival is a full-time job, dreams feel like luxuries. I keep telling myself it's not forever, that things will change, that I'll catch a break. But 5 years out of college, and I've never once felt secure. I cope in small ways. I walk a lot, it's free and it helps quiet the noise in my head. I journal when I can, write letters to a future version of myself who's figured it out. I say no to things I can't afford, even when it means missing out. I remind myself that I'm doing what I can, that surviving is a kind of resistance. I try not to compare myself to people who bought homes with their parents' help, or who call unpaid internships experience. It's hard, though. I don't hate my life. That's the thing, I find beauty in moments. A song I love coming on during my walk to work. A good conversation over cheap coffee. A day without anxiety. But I do hate the way this system grinds people down, how it makes you feel like you're failing when you're doing everything right. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe things get better. Maybe the rent stops rising faster than the minimum wage. Maybe one day, having a family won't feel like an impossible ask. I want to believe that. I have to. Because if I let go of hope, even for a second, I don't know what's left. So I keep going. One basket of groceries at a time. One bus ride. One shift. One small joy. And maybe someday, all the surviving will add up to something more. It's strange how quickly just for now becomes your whole life. I moved out when I was 22, full of that young, caffeine-fueled optimism that the world would bend if I pushed hard enough. I had a degree, a part-time job that paid just enough to scrape by, and a shaky but stubborn belief that things would get better once I got my foot in the door. I thought it was just a matter of time. That was 4 years ago. Now I'm 26, and I still live in a studio apartment the size of a generous walk-in closet. The rent takes more than half of my paycheck. I work full-time now, 2 jobs, actually, neither in the field I studied for. One is retail, the other is freelance digital marketing, chasing clients who ghost me after invoices and rewriting bios for Instagram influencers for $50 a pop. Between the shifts and side gigs, I get maybe one real day off a month. Most of my free time is spent doing laundry at the 24-hour place down the street or meal prepping rice and beans like a monk training for budgetary sainthood. The truth is, I don't remember what it feels like to breathe without doing math in my head. Every decision runs through a filter. Can I afford this? What will I have to give up if I say yes? Even something as small as grabbing coffee with a friend becomes a calculated risk. I've said no to birthdays, baby showers, even funerals, because the cost of gas or a gift card meant I might not eat lunch next week. Groceries are the worst. Prices go up like they're chasing a high. I walk into the store with a budget and leave with a knot in my stomach, because everything I used to buy now feels like a luxury. Cheese? That's a treat. Fruit? Only if it's on sale. I used to enjoy cooking. Now I just feel like a survivalist rationing supplies. I don't tell my parents much. They're already carrying their own burdens, and there's only so much disappointment I want to lay at their feet. They still ask if I'm saving anything and I laugh it off, but inside I feel like screaming. Save what? I'm not even living paycheck to paycheck anymore, it's paycheck to 3 days before paycheck, with a revolving door of late fees and overdraft charges when I miscalculate. I used to dream about traveling. Greece, Morocco, Japan. I wanted to taste food I couldn't pronounce, get lost in cities with alphabets I didn't recognize. I kept a list on my phone of all the places I'd visit once I made it. I deleted the list last year. Not out of bitterness, just fatigue. The kind that settles into your bones and makes fantasy feel like a cruel joke. What I didn't expect was how loneliness would sneak in, disguised as pride. I've turned down dates, get-togethers, even relationships, because what would I say? Hey, I'd love to hang out, but I'm terrified you'll pick a place I can't afford. Vulnerability sounds romantic until it involves bank statements and expired dental insurance. So I stay home, mostly. Watch movies I've seen 10 times, scroll through social media like I'm staring at a life I was supposed to be living. Sometimes I think about what I'd do if I had just a little breathing room. Nothing extravagant, just a cushion. Enough to cover rent without flinching, enough to buy new shoes before mine have holes. Maybe even therapy, or a gym membership that doesn't feel like a financial betrayal. I imagine myself waking up without that tightness in my chest, the one that reminds me rent is due and the car needs an oil change and my health insurance deductible might as well be the GDP of a small country. People say, money doesn't buy happiness, and maybe that's true. But it buys choices. Dignity. The chance to be generous without hurting yourself. Right now, my world is so small it feels like I'm living in a box, And every time I try to push against the walls, they push back harder. I cope in weird little ways. I journal, sometimes. I walk, when the weather's decent and my shoes don't hurt too much. I've learned to appreciate tiny victories, like a bill being only slightly higher than expected, or finding a pack of chicken marked down at the grocery store. I let myself cry when I need to. Not often, but enough to remember I'm still human, not just a cog grinding itself down in someone else's machine. And still, I hope. Not in the big, cinematic way I used to, but in flickers. I hope that someday I won't have to choose between buying shampoo and buying toilet paper. I hope I can take a deep breath and know that I'm safe, even if just for a month. I hope that the system that's squeezing people like me dry finally breaks, or better yet, gets replaced with something that values people more than profit. But mostly, I hope I make it. I don't mean become rich or famous or wildly successful, I just mean make it through. I want to grow older and look back at this chapter knowing it didn't break me completely. That despite everything, I kept going. I think about that a lot when I walk home late at night, the city buzzing just out of reach. My keys in my pocket, my shoulders heavy, but my feet still moving. Just one more block. Just one more day. Just for now. I didn't realize how heavy survival could feel until it became a full-time job. Most mornings, I wake up before my alarm goes off. Not because I'm eager to start the day, but because my brain doesn't let me rest. I'll stare at the ceiling for a while, doing mental math. Rent is due in 4 days. My checking account has $138.47. There's a credit card payment tomorrow, my phone bill the day after, and groceries are basically down to rice and some old frozen vegetables. I have $9.00 in cash folded in my coat pocket. That's my safety net. I'm 27, living in a studio the size of a parking space, and I work 2 jobs. One is at a cafe that pays $15.50 an hour, part-time. The other is freelance social media management for a local small business, gig work that used to feel like an opportunity and now feels more like a leash. The cafe job is technically below minimum wage when you factor in unpaid breaks and the fact that they can't afford to give me more than 29 hours a week so they don't have to provide benefits. I went to college. I got the degree. Everyone said that was the ticket, right? But here I am, with $62,000 in student loans and a bachelor's in communications that no one seems to value unless it's attached to 5 years of experience and a portfolio I couldn't afford to build because I've been busy trying not to drown. I used to dream of working in media. Not just scheduling tweets or editing TikToks, but producing meaningful content, documentaries, maybe. Telling stories that matter. I imagined being part of something bigger than me. I imagined creating things people might remember. But that dream is sitting in a dusty box somewhere behind all the unpaid utility bills and mental exhaustion. Now, every decision I make has a price tag. Do I pay the Wi-Fi this week or buy enough groceries to last until my next paycheck? Can I afford the bus fare to visit my mom, or do I stay home and save the $6? I used to love cooking, but now I'm just measuring calories against cost per ounce. I can't remember the last time I went out to eat with a friend and didn't feel like I was doing something wrong just by being there. There's a kind of shame that comes with being broke in a rich country. It's not just about money. It's about feeling like you failed some kind of unspoken test. Like everyone else got the cheat codes and you're still stuck on level 1. People tell you to just save more, as if you didn't already know that. As if saving is possible when the rent goes up every year but your wages don't. I've had to become creative with coping. I sell old clothes on apps when I need quick cash. I pick up dog walking gigs through an app that takes 20% of everything I make. I've gotten good at spotting the discount stickers at the grocery store. I water down my shampoo to make it last longer. I stopped buying coffee, which is ironic because I make it for other people every day. Sometimes I write. Just for myself. I'll open a Google Doc and pour out everything I'm too tired or too embarrassed to say out loud. I write about the versions of me that could have existed, The one who got that internship. The one who didn't have to drop out of therapy when they changed the sliding scale fees. The one who feels like they're building a life instead of barely holding one together. I postponed more than just dreams. I postponed dental work, medical checkups, relationships. Dating feels like a luxury I can't afford. Who wants to fall in love when you can't even promise you'll have stable housing next year? I don't want someone else to carry the weight of my financial chaos. And I don't want to resent someone for having more than me. It's a no-win situation. Still, I keep going. Not because I'm especially resilient or optimistic, but because there isn't really another option. I don't have a trust fund to fall back on. I don't have a backup plan. I have rent, and bills, and a to-do list that never ends. But sometimes, in the quiet moments, I let myself want more. Not in a greedy way, just in a deeply human way. I want to feel safe. I want to wake up and not be immediately punched in the gut by financial anxiety. I want to have enough breathing room to figure out who I am outside of survival mode. I want to take a vacation someday. Not a lavish trip, just a weekend somewhere I don't have to think about money. I still believe there's a version of the future where things get better. Maybe not perfect, but better. I think about universal healthcare and rent control and student loan forgiveness, not just as policies, but as lifelines. I think about people organizing for change, and I feel less alone. I'm not lazy. I'm not unmotivated. I'm not irresponsible. I'm tired. I'm underpaid. I'm stretched thin. And I know I'm not the only one. So I keep going. I clock in. I write when I can. I dream when it doesn't hurt too much. I try not to let the weight of it all make me numb. I remind myself that being tired of the grind doesn't mean I'm weak. It means I'm human. And that, at least, feels like something to hold on to. I'm 27, and most mornings I wake up already tired. Not from lack of sleep exactly, but from the weight of thoughts that never really stop, even when I'm lying in bed trying to quiet my mind. Rent's due in a week, my car needs new brakes, and my credit card bill just posted a minimum payment that looks more like a joke than a suggestion. That's the rhythm of my life now, juggling costs, hoping nothing else breaks, and praying I don't break either. I work 2 jobs. One's at a small marketing agency where I'm technically full-time, but the pay hasn't kept up with inflation, and raises are more myth than reality. The other's a weekend barista gig that I used to think was temporary. It's been 3 years. I brew lattes for college kids who don't blink, dropping $7 on a drink. I watch them scroll through their phones and laugh with friends, and sometimes I wonder if they know what it's like to choose between groceries and gas. Every dollar I spend is a calculation. If I buy groceries today, can I still cover my part of the electric bill? If I refill my antidepressant prescription, what bill do I postpone? It's like playing chess against an opponent who sees 10 moves ahead while I'm just trying not to lose my queen. I used to want to open a bookstore cafe. That was the dream. A little spot on a quiet street, second-hand books lining mismatched shelves, soft music playing in the background, the scent of coffee and old pages filling the air. It still lives in the back of my head, that dream, but it's like a painting I can't afford to hang. I started a savings account for it once. I think it has $13.47 in it now. The economy's a beast with too many heads. Rent has gone up every year since I moved into this 1-bedroom apartment, but my salary has barely budged. Health insurance premiums eat into my paycheck, and when I get sick, I hesitate before going to the doctor because the deductible's so high. I don't even remember the last time I went out just for fun. Everything has a price tag, even joy. And then there's the guilt, like I should be doing more. Working harder. Saving better. Budgeting smarter. But I already eat the same 4 meals every week. I haven't bought new clothes in over a year. I walk instead of drive whenever I can. What else is left to cut? It's not just about money. It's what money represents: security, freedom, the ability to say yes instead of always saying no. My friends talk about trips they're planning, weddings they're attending, even buying homes. I nod and smile and laugh at the right moments, then I go home and eat pasta with canned sauce and try not to cry while scrolling through their pictures on Instagram. I don't resent them, I envy them. Quietly. Ache in my chest kind of envy. I've learned to cope in small ways. I journal a lot, writing helps me sort through the mess in my head. I go for walks, even if it's just around the block, just to breathe air that doesn't smell like burnt espresso or fluorescent office carpet. I light a candle I got on clearance and pretend I'm somewhere else, somewhere warm and kind and not drowning in bills. Sometimes I wonder if my parents felt this way at my age. They bought a house in their 30s, raised kids, had one job that supported the family. I can't even imagine owning a house. A friend joked the other day that we'll be the first generation to retire into roommates, and we all laughed, but there was a bitter ring to it. We're supposed to build something, careers, homes, lives, but most of us are just trying to tread water without going under. Still, I keep going. Not because I see a clear path out, but because stopping isn't an option. I dream less now, but I haven't stopped entirely. Sometimes I still sketch layouts for that bookstore cafe. I collect names for it like charms, little pieces of hope I carry in my pocket. I look at them on my worst days and remind myself that I'm still here. Still fighting. Still dreaming, even if the dream is quieter now. I think that's what resilience looks like these days. Not bold, sweeping gestures. Just choosing to get up again. Choosing to believe that maybe, someday, things will shift. That all this pressure won't have been for nothing. That I won't always have to choose between surviving and living. So I show up. I make coffee. I write reports. I laugh when I can, cry when I need to, and keep one eye on that dream, waiting for a day when I can reach for it with something more than empty hands. I remember thinking when I was a teenager that adulthood meant freedom. You could eat ice cream for dinner, stay out as late as you wanted, buy whatever your heart desired. Now I'm 27, and the only freedom I know is the illusion I give myself when I scroll through apartment listings I can't afford, pretending I might move somewhere warmer, cheaper, easier. Most mornings start the same. My alarm buzzes at 6:30, but I lie there for another 15 minutes staring at the ceiling, calculating. How much do I have left until payday? Did that automatic payment for my student loan already go through? Can I afford to get coffee on the way to work, or should I skip it and save the $4.75? These questions aren't occasional, this is the soundtrack of my everyday. I live in a studio apartment I share with a space heater that groans louder than the city buses outside. The rent went up again last month, for the third time in 2 years. My landlord didn't even fix the crack in the bathroom ceiling, just sent me a note that said market conditions. That phrase has become the explanation for everything lately. Why groceries are 20% more expensive. Why my job hasn't given raises in 3 years. Why I'm still wearing the same winter coat from college, now with a rip in the armpit I sew closed every few months with cheap thread. I work in customer service for a tech startup. Work from home sounds great until you realize it just means pay your own electric bill and sit at your kitchen table for 9 hours. I answer chat messages and emails, trying to sound cheery while someone types in all caps about how our app ate their playlist or logged them out during a workout. Some days, I mute myself and cry for a few minutes between calls, especially when I remember that this job, this tiring, low-paid, invisible job, is the most stable one I've had since graduating 5 years ago. When I graduated with a degree in communications, I had dreams. I wanted to write stories, blogs, maybe even a novel one day. I used to wake up early and write before classes, stay up late reading fiction under the covers. But somewhere between the unpaid internships and the pandemic and moving back in with my parents for a year, that dream turned into something I only remember when I walk past the clearance section in a bookstore. I still write sometimes, in a Google Doc titled Someday, but it feels like I'm writing letters to a version of myself that doesn't exist anymore. The hardest part isn't even the constant math I do in my head every time I want to order takeout or replace my worn-out sneakers. It's the way the pressure builds up until I feel like I'm breathing through a straw. Everything is just a little too tight: money, time, energy. There's no room for mistakes, no cushion, no exhale. If I get sick and miss work, if my laptop breaks, if my car, a 2006 Honda Civic with a check engine light that's been on for 2 years, finally dies, then what? I don't have savings. Not really. Just a few $100s that I guard like it's sacred. I used to contribute to a Roth IRA, back when I had a part-time gig that paid decently. That account still exists, with a little over $1,200 in it. I haven't touched it, not because I'm financially disciplined, but because it feels like if I take that money out, I'm admitting I'll never retire anyway. My friends are in the same boat. We joke about it over $3 happy hour beers, making memes about our broken millennial dreams. But behind the jokes is a deep, gnawing anxiety. We talk about maybe moving in together to save money, or leaving the city altogether, or starting side hustles that never quite get off the ground because we're all so damn tired. I tried therapy, briefly, through a sliding scale program. It helped, but I had to stop when they raised the fee and my rent increased in the same week. I walk instead. Every evening, after logging off work, I go out and walk the neighborhood, not because I'm trying to exercise, but because I need to move through space that doesn't cost anything. I watch the dogs in the park and smell the street food and let myself feel like I'm part of something bigger. Sometimes I think about how my parents bought their first house when they were just a couple years older than I am now. Sometimes I imagine myself living by the ocean, working part-time at a bookstore, writing in the afternoons. Coping feels like a full-time job on its own. I budget obsessively, track every dollar in a spreadsheet that has conditional formatting to show me when I've overspent. I use the library instead of buying books. I make meals that stretch for days, rice, beans, frozen vegetables. I say no to weddings I can't afford to attend and pretend I'm just laying low this weekend when I don't want to admit I can't afford a night out. Every small decision carries weight, a reminder that I'm always walking a tightrope. There's this feeling I carry, like I'm always a few steps behind where I'm supposed to be. Like life is a moving walkway and I'm walking the wrong direction. I don't know what would happen if I stopped. If I let myself dream fully again. If I stopped guarding against everything that could go wrong and allowed myself to hope. But even with all of it, there's this stubborn spark in me that refuses to go out. I don't know if it's foolishness or resilience, but I still imagine a future that feels lighter. A future where I can afford therapy again, where I can buy my groceries without scanning the receipt twice. A future where I get to write something that matters and someone reads it and feels less alone. I'm not looking for luxury. I just want breathing room. Enough space to believe I'm not just surviving, but living. Enough security to say yes to things without panic. Enough hope to open that someday document and write like the world hasn't made me afraid to dream. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos. Also, leave a comment, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.